Okay, welcome to Books and Brews Light. This is our third episode, and today we have Lilian with us. And Lilian, do you use your last name?
Professionally, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Every email I got from you, most of them just had Lilian. It came through the system, so I wasn't sure if you just use that professionally. So today's guest has written a book that has to do with business. So since we don't want to be drinking whiskey at the business meeting, I brought iced coffee because it's kind of a warm day out there. So do you have anything exciting to drink? I think you said you like caramel syrup coffee, something like that.
Yeah, caramel. I had my caramel syrup with my cold brew this morning, so
That sounds really tasty. Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually don't drink coffee much, but this tastes really good. It's nice and cold. I also, since you write about business, I brought my tie, but I didn't have a shirt with the collar, and it looked really stupid without that. So I took it off. We do not want to look stupid. Lilian, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and about your book.
Sure. I am a PR coach and publicist. So what I do is I empower authors and creative entrepreneurs to do a couple different things, to unlock the superpowers behind their stories and to gain the confidence to push past limiting beliefs like fear, anxiety, and imposter syndrome, to harness the power of PR in order to achieve their goals by launching successful campaigns. And the way I do this is through primarily my one-on-one coaching services. I have individual sessions and I also have a coaching program where I work with my clients to really focus on the mindset and then the strategy behind their marketing and their PR. So basically, when my clients come to me and they say, I have a lot of anxiety about getting out there and sharing my story, a lot of authors say that, it really doesn't feel good to go out there and talk to, say, a podcaster about my story because it feels like I'm selling to strangers. I sit down with them and I say, okay, let's dissect this a little bit. This fear that you're feeling, this anxiety, where is that coming from? What's the root cause? What's triggering you to feel this way? And how can we help you build healthier coping mechanisms to push past that? So I use things with my clients like mantras, like affirmations, and tools like journaling to really help them have that toolbox of resources for every time when they start to feel that anxiety come up. Like they book an interview and it's half an hour out and they have the nerves coming up. They have those resources that they can lean into. The other part of what I do is the strategy. So we're working on the mindset. Now we're here to talk about the strategy on what do you actually want to do with your book, with your projects, with your business. What are your goals? When we break it down into bite-sized chunks, how can we then build a strategy and build methods that are going to help you reach that?
I am curious. I find it really interesting listening to you talk about authors being afraid to put themselves out there. Now, first of all, do you focus on fiction or nonfiction or just any author?
I've worked with authors that write both.
Okay.
So in a lot of cases, it's a slightly different approach, of course, because with fiction, you do have a lot of genre-specific things. As we dive into building that strategy, there's a lot of genre-specific media coverage that they can go after. Whereas somebody who's writing nonfiction, if it's a memoir, then I lean more into what are the themes of your book and how can we get you in front of audiences that want to hear more about that. Or if it's related to their business, then it's like, okay, how are we getting you out in front of the industry?
Right, right,
and to establish this book as an extension of your expertise.
right. I am very curious. As I listen to you talk about authors having fears, I really never had that fear. And I think probably it's because I was in music from the time I was 11. And so I'm very used to putting myself up on a stage, being in front of everybody. And for me, I usually sat at the back of the orchestra or the band. So I developed this mindset of, nobody sees me or hears me anyway. And I don't know if it was that or being on stage, but I haven't had those fears, not very much. And I'm kind of curious what ultimately helps most people get over that fear.
It really comes down to what I say to them is what I do as a coach, what makes it unique is that a lot of the framework is the same, right? When you're
Mhm.
talking about a PR campaign, everyone needs a media kit, everyone needs a pitch because you have to know what you want to tell people. And
Mhm.
everyone needs a media list because you have to know who you actually want to share your story with. But beyond that, it's really about providing that personalized support, guidance, and clarity to a client's individual needs. So when it comes to mindset, there's clients that are willing to do more of the meditation work, or maybe
Mhm.
hypnosis works for them. For other clients, journaling works for them. In many cases, I find that they may struggle while they're on their own, but once we're on a coaching call and we're brainstorming together, they have those light bulb moments. And
Mhm.
I love those light bulb moments because you can really see it sink in for them, because so many of my author clients and even my creative entrepreneur clients are very introverted, and they
Mhm.
want to build a business by allowing their projects and their books to speak for them. And I
Okay.
always say to them that, look, unfortunately, there are thousands of authors, thousands of entrepreneurs out there that do what you do.
Right.
And in order to get somebody to buy into the story and to support you and to buy from you, it's not even really about the product or the book itself. That's the vehicle. But
Right.
what they really want to know about is, who are you? What makes you different? Why did you create this book? Where did your inspiration come from? And the reason why they want to know that is because people buy from people. People support people, right? If it was just about the book, they could pick it up and read it. But in today's marketplace, there's so many books that
Right.
focus on similar themes. They're in the same genre, maybe perhaps even their cover design looks very similar, and people can get them confused.
With
So
millions of books, I think it does become, as you say, even the covers. Think about a romance novel, how many
mhm,
variations on the same theme. And you probably see that in your line too. So you're more of a coach
yes,
than an actual publicist.
I do campaigns as well, but
Okay.
the distinct difference between the two is that campaigns is really about me getting in there and getting hands-on with it. So I
Mhm.
work with my author clients to actually build the media kit, to put together the media list, to write out the pitches, and then I serve as the middleman to help bridge the gap between my author client and the media outlet, scheduling
Okay.
interviews, managing media relations, and that. So it's really for authors who just, they want to get it done. They have a sense of what their goals are, and they're willing to work with me to input their basically their input
Right.
into the actual campaign. Whereas on the coaching side, that's really for the authors and the entrepreneurial clients who are looking for guidance on how to move forward.
Hmm.
They want to learn, they want to grow, they may have some ideas on how to get out there, but they don't have the full strategy and they need those personalized tools, the resources, and the support to really understand how to make better choices, better informed decisions for their marketing and PR strategies. And it also helps to give them the competence and knowledge they need if down the road they do decide to work with another publicist or another PR firm. They can stand up and say, hey, these are my goals. This is where I want to take my book. Because many of the authors that I've spoken to, and even some of my clients when they first came to me, had said that they had previously done campaigns, but they didn't get the results that they wanted because they didn't feel comfortable speaking up and letting the PR firm or the publicist know that, hey, this is what I want to do with it.
Right. How did the book come into that? Was that before you started this business, after, which came first?
The business definitely came first. I was doing a lot of discovery calls with authors. I was talking on a few podcasts and Instagram lives and things like that. And I had authors and entrepreneurs in my network say to me, do you have a book? Would you write a book? Because following you on social media is great. I get the strategic tips and everything, but what I don't get is the whole picture. I don't have a resource that I can flip through and refer back to and really sort of see myself learning from a resource that'll help me take action on it. So when I started writing the book, it was really about focusing on what are the biggest questions that my clients have had and entrepreneurs in my audience have had about the world of PR, and how can I make this book the first step to helping to educate them about the world of PR, demystifying PR, busting PR myths, and helping them actually start to build that strong mindset and develop those strategies in order to move forward. So what would
you say a couple of the biggest myths are?
Biggest myths, well, probably number one, the most popular one would be PR doesn't work for me because I don't have $30,000 or $40,000 for a campaign and I don't have an audience in the millions.
Okay.
Now, that myth persists because so much of pop culture, so much of the news, so much of the media that we consume shows us celebrities that of course have that and that are able to spend the money traveling around doing press tours and everything. But in reality, you don't need all of those bells and whistles to launch a PR campaign. What you need is a strong sense of what your goals are, confidence in your story and your willingness to share it, and some ideas of who your audience actually is. You don't have to have all the answers on how you're going to get out there, but you do need to know where you want to take your projects and who your audience is, and also what you want to tell them in order to really make that work. And that can work for any author and any entrepreneur. I would say the next most popular myth is the idea that all publicity is good publicity. This is a myth that predates me and my work in this industry by decades. And
I'm kind of laughing because when I first started my publishing company, I was in a writer's group, and one of our members was always joking about that line and always volunteering to create a scandal with me. And I'm like, we laughed about it, but no, I don't want that on my record. Whatever scandal you're thinking of.
Exactly. That's, they seem to think that, the problem with a lot of this is that because, going back to the idea that so many people think you have to have the money in order to make publicity work. By and large, when there are negative scandals that come up, it's the people with money that are able to weather those scandals well enough
interesting.
to have their reputations rebound.
Mhm.
For your average entrepreneur, for your indie author, if you have skeletons in your closet, no matter what it could be inflammatory status updates that you posted on Facebook or on Twitter 15 years ago,
Mhm.
or it could be because somebody has video footage of you in a bar fight. Whatever it is, if you do not do your due diligence to make sure as much as possible those things are cleaned up and off the internet, when you actually launch a campaign and you get out there and you start talking about your book and you start trying to build connections with the media and build trust with the audience, all of a sudden someone can go digging and find these things about you, and that can make it so much harder for you to recover
Mhm.
from that hit that your reputation has taken, because you're only just starting to build one.
Right. Now, I do have a question. One of my early experience, I put my first book out in 2009, and I was completely unknown. I wrote it myself. I set up my publishing company to publish it, and I publish for other people now too. And I did spend maybe about $150 to pay someone to set up a 2-month long blog tour. And that was absolutely fantastic. That gave me, now, if by dumb luck, my book happened to come out at the height of Outlander's popularity. And my book is also time travel to Scotland, which I didn't even know who she was when I wrote mine. So, as I said, dumb luck, and a lot of people loved my book because they loved time travel to Scotland at the time. However, the blog tour gave me a huge boost in getting the book out there, and I was in the top 100 in my category for 8 months on Amazon, and I was bringing in enough income from one book that I was on the brink of quitting my day job. However, I was working 18 hours a day to do all that promotion and take care of my kids and do my day job, et cetera, and so forth. Now, I'm getting to the question. I later paid for a couple of my authors who I published to have blog tours too, because it did so well for me and it did nothing for them. And these were good books. They're people who are very good at writing the blog entries and things that they need to submit for the blog tours. And somebody told me, well, marketing, like everything, tends to have fads, and blog tours were working 5 years ago, but today it's something else that's working. What is your input on that statement?
With things like methods
Mhm.
within PR, and I do cover this in my book, there are several different types of public relations. The previous myth I had just busted really focuses more on having a crisis communications plan, which is about having the responses and the information you need at hand to update the concerned stakeholders. So if you have a press conference, if you're doing it on social media, if you're doing it through the media, that sort of thing. And within PR, earned media, which is what we're speaking on with regards to the blog tours, there are several different ways to go about that. It's one of
Mhm.
the reasons why I always say to my clients is your audience is going to be consuming media, consuming content on several different platforms in today's day and age in several different ways. So that means they're going to be reading, they're going to be watching, they're going to be listening. And the thing about PR is that you cannot just rely on one type of earned media or one type of strategy to get you the results that you want. In
Mhm.
today's day and age, audience members need something, like to see something, say, about 20 times or so for it to sink in, number one, and then for them to remember it to actually take action.
Okay.
So with that being said, with something like blog tours, or even I've seen a lot of authors do book review tours, virtual book review tours, where they have they sign up with a company that works with influencers that will post reviews on Instagram and TikTok and places like that. You can't rely on just that one method to completely keep you top of mind all the time with your chosen audience, because of the fact that there are going to be factors that are outside your control. For example, is that blogger or that reviewer going to post your review more than once? Or is that one time it? Are they also doing things like, do you know if they're doing newsletters? Are they talking about your book in Facebook groups? Are they actually telling people in person about your book? There's so many different ways in which you can build a PR campaign that's going to include things like those virtual book tours that will help your book permeate the consciousness of your audience and help it remain sticky and stay there. But in order to do that, you would have to spend that time and that energy, or whoever it is that you're working with would have to spend that time and that energy to take, say, that one review and make sure it continues to stay top of mind. So that means they're sharing it on social media. That means they're pulling quotes from it and putting it on their blog. That means they're sharing it in Facebook groups. That means they're sending it out in their newsletters. So it's not even so much that, yes, landing that one opportunity is important, but then you have to ask yourself, what am I doing with that opportunity to make sure that it continues to get eyeballs on it? It continues to get ears. It continues to, things like that. So and to your point, sometimes timing is also really important. With your example, it managed to come across a moment in the pop culture zeitgeist that really made it super impactful, which that's not something every book and every author can count on.
Right, exactly. And who knows, if it hadn't been for that, maybe my first blog tour wouldn't have done so much for me. So it was a combination of things. And so when you have a client you're setting up a campaign for, how much time does it typically take to set up a really good campaign? Are we talking 3-4 hours a day you work for each client, or just, half an hour a day? What does it take?
It really depends on the client's needs, because I do have clients that have come to me and they've never done a campaign before. So that means there's a lot of, we spend a lot of time first building the assets for the campaign. So building the media kit, actually writing and revising and polishing pitches in order to send out to different media, and then making sure that the media list is up to date, that they're actually getting on, if they have, I always welcome ideas from my clients on, are there certain podcasts you want to be on? Are there certain bloggers you want to talk to? Is there a YouTube show that you followed for ages that you would love to be on? Things like that. So the first part of a PR campaign is probably the most labor-intensive part, because you're getting everything ready. And that can be anywhere between, 25 to 40 hours over a couple weeks, or over a month and a half. And then it's really about doing the pitching, sending out the emails, doing the follow-ups, keeping the client in the loop with recaps, and also sending out notifications if we get a request for an interview, if we get a request for an event, if we get a request for a review, things like that. And making sure at the same time, which is something quite a few PR firms may not do, and that is, once the coverage goes live, I make it my mission to help my client amplify that message. So I'm sharing their press coverage to my audience through my newsletter and on social media as well, to make sure that it's continuing to permeate and get out there with the right audiences, so that they're seeing it from several different sources. They're seeing it from me, they're seeing it from the media platform, and they're also seeing it from my clients as well.
Right. And anyone you can convince them to repost and so on. I have to ask, I keep seeing these ads, on the beginning of videos. You can become a best-selling author if you have zero social media, 0 followers, if you have no money to spend. These seem like pretty grand promises to me. Is any of this true, or is it sure if you hire the right person and spend enough time? I mean, how can someone sell books if they have virtually no social media following?
In my opinion, and in my experience,
Mhm.
these videos and these individuals are selling flash in the pan promises. It's very, very similar to anyone who says, we can get you in Forbes or Entrepreneur or Inc.
Mhm.
or in the New York Times and then they tell you afterwards it'll be for a certain fee. So
Right.
then my question to all of that is okay, then what?
Mhm.
Because it goes in line with the belief that mainstream is still the best, in
Mhm.
spite of the fact that continue to see mainstream media shrink with,
Right. And
all
and
of that.
I'm really glad to hear you say that, because every time I see those, there's a part of me like, okay, you're being very cynical. Maybe they know something you don't. And the other part is like, come on. And part of this, I taught music lessons for 32 years. And most of that was piano because that's most of the demand. And one day I walked into the community center where I taught, and there was a flyer. And it said, I can teach you to play piano like the pros in 1 hour, and I'll teach you all the secrets that piano teachers have been hiding from you so they can keep their job. And I looked at that and went, okay, number one, he's probably teaching them 3 or 4 basic chords. Number two, I have 32 years experience, and I don't appreciate him saying I'm lying to my students. Number three, some people can learn a few chords in an hour. Most people can't. It takes dexterity, it takes some understanding, coordination. And so to me, these ads have always sounded like the same thing. Promises that probably can't be kept, but they're going to bring in money because people hope they can be kept.
Exactly. And it really is sort of the marketing version of signing with the vanity press. I know quite a few authors and have heard through the grapevine about several more who have gotten burned by places like that, who will take your money and they don't uphold their end of the agreement.
Mhm.
For public relations and marketing to really work, we don't trade in guarantees.
Mhm.
But what I say to my clients, and what I know a lot of my colleagues will say to their clients, is that we will work our hardest to help you find the right methods to
Mhm.
get in front of your audiences in more ways than one. So we're not
Mhm.
just going to suggest that you stick with a podcast strategy. We're not just going to say mainstream is best, because mainstream audiences may not be your audiences.
Right.
We're
That's
actually
true.
going to get into the trenches and actually figure out, where are your audiences spending their time, and what are the platforms they trust enough to listen to regularly, to read regularly, to watch regularly, and how is that going to help you get your book out in front of the right people, or get your projects out in front of the right people. And I love your experience as a piano teacher, because I had 15 years of lessons myself, and
On
I
piano.
taught, yeah, and I taught
Okay.
for a year as well.
Okay.
And it was coming through that experience that I realized, how much my teacher put up with, from me. God love her. She was one of my favorite people growing up, and I definitely will always respect and love everything that she taught me. But it was
Well,
also really that appreciation for putting in that work. It's so much of the way you approach things as a teacher is also the same way you approach things as a coach, where it's really about recognizing what does this individual client or this individual student need to
right,
help them
right,
understand and unlock how to use that material for themselves and to better
right.
understand the piece, and to also develop an appreciation for that knowledge and that skill set that they're building as well.
Right. Well, and some students are there because their parents make them be there. And I have a funny story regarding that. My first instrument was actually organ. And we were in the military, so my mother didn't want to try and haul a piano around. So she got one of those little organs that they had in the 70s and made me take organ lessons, and I hated it with a passion. And finally, my teacher said, "This is the most stubborn student I've had in 25 years," and she kicked me out, and I was so happy. So I have to say that's the irony of my life, that I then ended up teaching piano lessons. I had never actually had piano lessons myself, apart from some basics in college, but my degree is in music. So do you have another book coming out, or do you think in the future you will?
I've actually been contemplating what sort of things I would add to a second edition of the
Mhm.
Powerful Publicity Prescription in terms of how to bridge the gap for audience members in other things where it's like talking more about how to build relationships with associations to get speaking engagements,
Mhm.
how to work with influencers, more about all of the nuances that go into budgeting when you're looking at doing more marketing. So that's kind of the plan for a tentative second edition for the book. I also actually released a companion glossary and a workbook as well to go
Oh,
along
wow.
with
Okay.
the book,
I can
because
see a
I
workbook being very, very helpful for something like this.
because I really wanted people to not just read it, review it, and put it aside. I
Mhm.
wanted them to read it and really start thinking about, how am I going to take action on what I'm learning here? You know,
Mhm.
how am I going to actually move my books forward and to get
Mhm.
more sales and to connect with more readers and to build more trust and credibility for myself as an author?
Right.
So
Right.
the workbooks, really, the glossaries there to kind of give them more of the official definitions of the terms I use in the book. And then the workbook is really the space to help them start brainstorming
Mhm.
how to develop that strategy.
Right. This is just sort of a side question I'm interested in myself. Did you do the workbook as perfect bound or a coil or spiral binding?
I went with a coil bound.
And you're an indie author, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Who do you use to print up your books?
I actually decided to go wide with my books. So with
Okay.
that, I went with Amazon KDP for the book and the glossary. And
Mhm.
then for all three of them, to do print on demand through my website, because I'm
Mhm.
also selling the books on my website, I went with Lulu, and
Okay.
Lulu is a Canadian company, and they offered the correct sizes for the workbook
Right.
and also the coil
Right.
bound as well. So,
Right. And I think Lulu is the only one who offers coil binding.
oh, are they really? I wasn't aware of that.
I'm asking. I haven't found any others. I mean, there might be printers, like say you could take it to Vistaprint, something like that, but they wouldn't necessarily put it on online markets for you. You would have to really market it yourself through your website. So I was just curious if you knew if of any of the other major print on demands did coil binding.
As far as I know, Lulu is one of the few, if not the only one, and I wanted to also go with a Canadian company for that, being that I am in Canada, to make it
Oh,
a
you
little
are?
bit,
Okay,
yes, to make it a little bit easier regarding printing and shipping and
right.
that.
You're actually on the West Coast, aren't you?
I am, yes.
Are you right above Washington?
I am, yes, I'm in DC.
Okay. Okay. I used to live in Seattle, and in fact, my ex-husband's aunt and uncle lived up there. So I've been up there a few times, but it's been a long time. Anyway, the reason I ask is because I live now on a farm and we raise rabbits. We raise meat rabbits. And although magicians would probably like to buy my rabbits too, because they're white, so you can pull them out of a hat. So any magicians who want to buy my rabbits, get in touch with me. Anyone who wants to eat rabbits. So I'm putting together a cookbook and I would like it to be coil bound. And that's kind of the biggest fire I have to put out after doing the podcast. So that's why I was curious if you had any great resources, but it sounds like we found the same one. So
yeah, they do a fantastic job. Absolutely, the quality is absolutely gorgeous. So I have no complaints whatsoever.
Mhm. Yeah, one of my next jobs, I want to start looking for printers that can do some of the fancier covers with gold embossing and things like that. And so far, I just haven't had time to look into that because we keep pretty busy around here, feeding rabbits and sheep and doing all the stuff we do. So any final words of wisdom for our audience?
I would say for any authors that are looking at thinking about marketing and PR in general, before you even go gallivanting off and thinking about, I want my books in this bookstore, or I want to do a book signing here, or whatever, sit down and actually think about, okay, short term and long term, what are my goals? If I say I want more sales, put a number on it. Say you want to increase sales by 20% in 6 months. Okay, there's your number, there's your time frame parameter. How are you going to do that online and in person and through events? And then start brainstorming where you want to go, and also looking at, okay, what is my budget for something like that? If I want to travel and to do conferences and festivals, you may have someone in the industry that may contradict me here, but up until this point, I haven't heard of any authors that have been paid to attend conferences and festivals and being paid to speak, or things of that nature up until this point. So knowing that, for most authors, that kind of thing has to come out of your pocket. So if you're looking at increasing sales through something like that, what does that strategy look like? How are you going to do things like the promotion? Are you going to how are you going to reach out to maybe media outlets that could be attending that event, to do interviews beforehand, to give them copies of the book for them to review, and then, to push things like getting pre-orders before the event, so then you're not just depending on what you sell on site. Things like that. These are all intricacies of when you're looking at building a strategy. You need to kind of take a couple steps back and go, what are my goals? How am I going to break down those goals to make them more manageable? And then at the same time, if I feel like something is stopping me, if I am afraid, if I'm really anxious about this, where is that coming from? Take some time to actually sit down and really think about it. Do I have something that's stopping me from moving forward? If it's, if my finances line up with where it is that I want to take this, is it my mindset that's stopping me? And if it is, why is that? And how can I work through it?
So all good advice. Where can people find you online?
They can absolutely follow me at Lilian LeDoux, copywriter PR, all one word, on Instagram. I'm there 5 days a week, giving strategic tips and talking about my book as well. You can pick up a copy of my book at all major retailers online or on my website at inretrospectwritingservices.com/shop. And you can get the print versions as well as the ebooks direct from me. And you can always send me an email as well. I'm always available to answer any questions authors have about PR, about marketing, and really about just making sure that their books get into the hands of the right readers.
Fantastic. And do you have any public events coming up that people could attend?
I'm actually going to be speaking at an online virtual event on August 28th.
Okay.
I'll be talking about the secrets to unlocking your PR superpowers. So I can send you the link for that, but that's a
Fantastic.
virtual event.
I can put that in the link down below. So people can find me at Laura Vosica, V as in Victor, OSIKA.com. I'm also on Instagram, and I'm at booksandbrews.net, all spelled out one word. And my events coming up are, I will be at the book fair in Nashville on October 26th and 27th. And I would like to thank our sponsor, Gabriel's Horn. They're at gabrielshornpress.com. And if people enjoy the program and would like to help us grow, please like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. So Lilian, Sue, thank you very much for being on. Cheers.
Thanks for having me.